Thank you. So we're getting through the last leg of the talks today. And we have Julian and Waseem who are here to talk about to identify, exploit, and defend SAP environments. Waseem works for No Monkeys and Julian with Fortinet.
Fortinet.
So we'll see how SAP environment is really secure.
Yeah.
Have at it.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for having us. Quick question, who works for SAP here? Good. Hosting SAP in your environments? Come on. All right. So to give a small, our agenda, we'll come through all this, but I do want to start with SAP if nobody has, you came across SAP, but to see if the complexity of SAP is actually a blessing, for attackers, or is it actually a curse? So red teamers, please take notes. It's gonna make your life even better or easier when you have that arsenal. So first of all, lines of code. Let's talk about the application level. We see from different applications the estimate numbers of lines of codes when it comes to different applications. Can anybody guess the 84, this is in million, by the way, not just 84 lines of code. So can anybody guess the 84 million lines of code to which application that is? No. So this is Mac OS, I think Tiger that was there. And then SAP with a booming 319. This is their own code. This is not even, I'm not talking about custom code. I'm not talking about third-party add-ons. I'm just talking about their business suite. Yeah. No, nothing. You gotta wait for it.
No bug fixes.
So let's take another step forward and see what kind of vectors. So this is a very old SAP ERP. Yes, it still runs in different organizations. You see there's a lot of entry points to where you can speak to different processes, or I'm not going to explain to you every single process right now, but just to have an idea of where ERP was, still is, and how big it has. So if you can imagine double the size for the S/4HANA implementations or any kind of other ERP that is produced by SAP. So are you imagining the attack vector yet? All right. Let's take it a step forward and see the different network components that SAP has. They're not scary. SAP router is not a scary thing. It's a dummy router. So web dispatcher, you have cloud connectors, you have different kinds of gateways that connect to your on-premise or even to your cloud environments when it comes to SAP.
So what you also need to think of, so we spoke quite a while today about, for example, HTTP or common protocols. I hope it's better. But for example, in like the satellite talk, we spoke about stuff which is maybe older than myself. Welcome to SAP. When you see like that RFC or the DIAC, that's proprietary stuff. SAP has developed in 1992 and earlier with knowledge from IBM, and well, it runs exactly the same like at that time. So guess what was missing at that time? Correct, encryption. So by default, that stuff is missing. There is a solution, we will come to that, but when you now look, those are proprietary protocols, user accessing your business data, and business systems speaking to other systems. And that could be IoT, that could be another business system, that could be maybe a partner system, by the way, over the internet, that could be, I don't know what else. And now, maybe you know where SAP is used. For example, in healthcare. Your medical records in a hospital, when you come there and you have an accident, is in an SAP system. And if you ever worked, for example, in that environment or in a financial system, and you know when the SAP system is down, and you're laying there, half dead, sorry, SAP is down, we cannot help you.
It's secure, by the way.
And it's secure, by the way, of course. So just to keep that in mind, what SAP is.
Absolutely. So as Julian was saying, they have their proprietary protocols like DIAC, like RFC, that has been built off of IBM knowledge and then SAP knowledge and so on and so forth. So imagine the amounts of patches that you have to do around these different kind of protocols. And then SAP really wants to go to cloud. So, RISE is the solution. Have you heard of RISE before? RISE with SAP. Yeah, it's amazing, right? They take all those responsibilities that you had for protecting an SAP environment, and they will take care of it. But then they send you around 50 plus, 60 plus pages of data telling you that it is an additional service to protect you from disaster recovery. It's an additional service to protect you from high availability. You name it. If you want this document, please come to me. I will send it to you happily. And then SAP would like to go to AI with Joule, and it's an amazing. And the first thing that they did, is, yes, it got spawned. AI vulnerabilities exposed customer cloud environments and private AI artifacts. It's still secure and isolated and all of that. So are we imagining how SAP's attack vector is quite impressive? I come from, to get to the background, I come from a cybersecurity blue and red team. I went into SAP security around 5-6 years ago, and I tell you that what I found, Julian has been doing it for years, what I found is that the same thing that they have been doing before I jumped are still existing. Standard users are still existing with standard passwords. I'm just giving you an example here. But yeah, anyway. Some myths around SAP, which I like to always showcase. Zero trust. Where's the gentleman? Aaron, what he showed us about zero trust, that's zero trust. So for SAP, zero trust is not a product. Please don't believe SAP people when they tell you zero trust is a product. It's not a product. Yeah? While identity and access management and authorization is really a big thing around SAP, it's not the only thing. So I've seen coming into this environment or coming into this domain, when we talk about SAP security, they only talk about those IAM and authorization guys. They miss out on those other interfaces. They miss out on the entire environment. They miss out on the network. So they're really isolated, sitting somewhere fancy. They're not like the IT administrators in a bunker or somewhere. They have budgets, really huge budgets when it comes to SAP. So they are stuck somewhere doing IAM and authorization. They miss out on everything else. One other thing is that companies do is they really enforce some controls only on production system. And there's a lot of staging levels for SAP system. So you can imagine going from a development stage to a acceptance stage to a regression stage. And yeah, we don't have to put controls there. We keep it flat network, no network segmentation, amazing. But we can protect, we should protect only the production environment. So SAP Basis team takes care of security. Think of SAP Basis team as IT administrators. So the skill set of actually protecting an SAP system is not there. So they will not know how to even start or where to start from. There's an ongoing, discussion between SAP Basis guys and ourselves on, yes, you guys do not know how to protect those environments, and you could test that. SAP systems are isolated. I think we just proved on how they are connected, how different environments, the cloud, different hyperscalers, they are not isolated. So yes, you need that protection. And finally, one that I hear with most of customers that I work with, now work with, but before, is that it's German-made, it is secure by default. Do you believe that? But actually, none of this, the only thing that keeps me from sleeping or from lack of sleep is actually what SAP protects. It protects 72% of your production. Imagine those breweries getting hacked, what Oktoberfest would look like. The whole. the horror, imagine. You're waking up, there's no beer anymore.
Or the hospitals. Look at that. Exactly.
And it's really used in breweries. We did some pen tests, not red teams. They don't like to touch anything else. They will be very specific and scoped. You really can turn off without like doing any kind of reconnaissance, just knowing which port to look for. And you could turn off an entire beer brewery production, whatever. So yeah, that's something this is why I came to this domain, to help beer producers do that. All right. Moving on, some of our now project goals for OWASP, now to get into some serious talk. Now, we do want it to provide that standard. SAP is not a security company, even though sometimes they act like it, but they really say that we are not a security company. So we want to create that standard, whether it is through the tools that we are producing or through the standard that you will see soon. Tools to verify those security standards, and of course to find a single point where everybody can come through this project to understand about SAP, whether you are SAP or you are not, to understand what kind of protections you can put, how you can test, how you can verify, how you can exploit your environment in a safe manner in that trusted area, which is our OWASP core business application security. And of course, another project goal is just to piss off some people and vendors. Yeah. So to give you an idea of how the OWASP core business application security looks like. Right now, we have different people working on different stuff, mostly around deception, adversary simulation, attack surface management. Julian is leading the SAP Attack Surface Discovery, which we will have a look at. But most of these projects really help you improve, let's say, at least give you an idea of what SAP looks like into your organization or into outside where it is exposed. And then on top of that, or on bottom, we build that verification standard where it's really needed for people to know how to protect it. Okay, I found this. How can I take a dummy how-to guide on how to protect SAP from these pitfalls? And this is what it provides. There's a lot of work still to do. We're trying to move now from Python 2.7 to 3, and especially around the Honey SAP and PySAP. I'll get to those in a little while, but we are trying to improve that. So the more that we have contributors, we have great contributors like Jonathan, Gonzalo. So there's a lot of the SAP community that do contribute into this project. Up to you.
So that's just a simple introduction. Maybe to add that PySAP, just to have an idea, it sounds super fancy. That's really a reverse engineering of all those proprietary protocols. So just to take that up front, that's crazy. So from the attack surface discovery, sounds a bit marketingish, sorry for that. I'm super interested what's going on around. Who exposes his SAP systems? And well, what should I say? So we introduced you to one or the other service. So SAP has, oh my gosh, I don't know how many different services you can technically expose, which is super crazy on SAP. They more or less dynamically generate a port on when you start up that application stack. So especially for firewall and network administrators, you have a lot of fun because someone tells you, hey, I need GUI access. And you can say, well, that's potential port range of 100 ports. Which should I open? And guess what happens? Yes, 90%, which we see on audits, is 100 ports are open. Congratulations. And not only sometimes to internal communication, also to the public. Because to be honest, for someone who just do network stuff, SAP is really a black box. You have no understanding of the service, and how should you? That's a whole business world where you have tons of different silos, like developers, engineers, administrators and stuff. They do only SAP. How should you, as a network guy, who has another silo, by the way, take care of that SAP stuff? That's like if someone asks you to run the whole IT, and you have skills of everything. That's impossible. And when you look at all those services, I just picked a few, and let's grab, for example, that SAP router. So what SAP had, think about many years back when you had just a modem, and you try to reach another system over the internet. So the problem is if you now have, I don't know, maybe 50 or 100 SAP systems, you need to expose all those ports. And they maybe collide with each other because they're the same port number. So you cannot all expose them on the same IP address, and getting an IP is a bit difficult, especially in the meantime for IPv4. So what SAP does say, hey, we have a great idea. Let's build a service which listens on one port, and on client side, you specify just, I want to connect to the like application gateway, and this one then just redirects internally and allows you to access the other system through that single port. Let me introduce you to SAP Router. What is the security mechanism in there? That's an ACL, Source Destination Service. You may think now, well, cool, SAP, only proprietary protocols and their own stuff works. No, which is pretty cool. You can also tunnel through that proprietary protocol called SAP Router, SSH, HTTP, Telnet, whatever you like, as long as it fits in the packet. And for example, PySAP has a great proxy for that. You can just spin up, route your traffic through, and have fun. And you're in the internal network, by the way. You bypass the firewall because it's usually exposed. And look at the numbers of exposed SAP routers. Leading is India. Congratulations there. Germany is on the 4th position. So of just systems, they're really set in the internet. That's just a service exposed. It's nothing bad. That's intended for that. Other services which are a bit better, the dispatcher is so-called for the user to access the SAP system through the FAT client, the GUI. Something you definitely should not expose because you can use that SAP router for that. That's made for having you that remote access. Yeah, it was quite a few. Again, India is on the top. Then you have China, United States, and South Korea, for example. Those are all systems in those countries exposed that service to the internet. Even more interesting on that is, so as I mentioned, SAP generates a dynamic. There's quite common that many people use that 00 as instance number, so I only scanned one port. I ignored 99 others. I don't know what else will come out there. And just maybe as a background, have you ever tried scanning the whole internet? So for one port, if you have a good hoster, which, for example, ignores abuse reports, it takes about 40 minutes to scan for one single port about the whole range. Multiplied it with some hundreds. And the problem is, in the cloud, it's dynamic. It's a bit challenging. That's why I only took one port. The RFC gateways for server-to-server communication, similar, should not be exposed. Strict guidelines don't do that. There were vulnerabilities in that, and those were, well, it's not a vulnerability, it's intended by design. When you connect to the service, it doesn't have any authentication, and there's a process allowing you to execute OS commands. Maybe Google for 10K Blaze, or Gateway to Heaven.
Pretty sure they're not canary.
Well, to be honest, that scanner indeed found some honeypots, and you can easily identify those. They're responding on all ports. It was super interesting because I saw some, wait, how can that thing have 100 ports open? What's going on? Yeah, I found some. So it's not cleaned up, but yeah. The RFC gateway. Let's go back to the SAP router. I found 8,793 worldwide. What do? They just leak a version number and their host name. Favorites of mine are like that one. It's the HR productive system, where that one is running on, and it's exposed to the internet. So think about potentially someone could find maybe a vulnerability on a thing that allows to get remote code execution. Where are you? On the productive HR system. Nice. But that's just a potential use case, so we want to have something which is like, that's a problem. 93 of those routers allowed me to dump their connection table. So what does that mean? That SAP router has a built-in functionality which allows it to monitor that application. What does it do? It just prints you that source is connected to that destination on that port. So I get some internal insights. This also means I know which source is allowed to which destination. I know internal IP addresses. I know public IP addresses maybe who are connecting to that. Another one is that feature is disabled since various updates. I think they patched it around 2014. That stuff still runs there. And if I now tell you that, for example, I found some gold mining companies in China exposing their systems through that, and you can then connect to that stuff and connect to the SAP system, if someone potentially would do that, and you maybe find then some hard-coded credentials on an internal production system, what would you do? If you speak Chinese, you can order some gold, yeah. So it's super interesting. So the problem is that's like, so I lovely call it the forgotten component, because the SAP router is quite often just thrown in the network, usually, hopefully, to be honest, based on my statistics, never runs in the DMZ. Mostly times runs on any production machine on the side, which is super scary. It should be running in the DMZ on a standalone box side away, but I also found many of those running, for example, on Windows Server 2003, without an SP. The good thing on those is no one can really exploit them anymore because no one has any idea how to exploit those old systems. That's really a good thing, but that's the only one. Now, it has some pros and cons. The problem is it's really bad secured. So that's what we did here. Some other stuff we found is, for example, we get those system names. I extended it a bit. You will see it in the demo. You can put on the SAP FAT client, you have there a comment field where you can put in like free text. System information, hey, that's a production system, be careful what you click on. Don't push stuff on Friday, blah, blah, blah. Some people really put their demo systems out. For example, consulting companies, or maybe sometimes even SAP themselves. Where would you place your demo credentials that no one really forget them? Right on the login page. So you sometimes find their logging information. Another one is one of my favorites. So SAP, it's big, thousands of users running against it, so you need load balancing. SAP has a message server. Let me introduce you to that service. And the message server has the cool feature you connect to it, and it will say, go to server X, you get redirected basically, and then can log into the machine. It has 2 ports. Well, yeah, it has 2 ports, dynamic generate, an internal and an external. With that gateway to heaven, we also spoke about that internal port. Again, lack of authentication, and that internal allows you to change parameters, and also dump parameters. And what you see here, for example, that MS Monitor, that's basically, you can enable that. That's a monitoring service. So 0 means only the instance itself can see each other and see which services are there and how the load is. If it's to 1, external can connect from wherever and change stuff. And if you then see like that MS admin port, that's why I included that. Connect to that port. Congratulations, you now can change whatever configuration parameter an SAP system has. You can change it and switch it when it is dynamically. That means, for example, enable hard-coded user passwords and credentials. So you basically have taken over that system. And when I now tell you that SAP recommends to not install an EDR and AV on an SAP server, you will laugh that as a red teamer. It's like a wildcard breaking into a network. You have no visibility what's going on and who is executing what. And yeah, at the end, that's one of my tests, which maybe potentially someone could have done. We never do something like that. Hard-coded credentials in various systems from SAP. So SAP is multi-client compatible. So for example, I know from some public governance systems in Germany that there's one hoster running 500 different communities in one system. It's made for that. That's a pretty cool thing of SAP. And but there's always one that's the shipped by default. That's a 000, and it goes up to 999. You can iterate those and figure out maybe, and if someone adds by accident a new one and do not add any user or data, and sets the wrong parameter, you have hard-coded credentials enabled and can break into the system. And if you think that there's no OS execution capability in SAP, no, it is. So let me give you a quick demo of what we do with the Attack Surface Discovery. So the idea of that whole project is providing a relatively easy way to identify which services are exposed, and if you have maybe some critical exposure, like of those message server, are there some parameters there? Do you maybe have set up your security properly? You can avoid those message server stuff if you just flip a single parameter. It's just turn on automatic encryption. It's there, you just need to turn it on. And the idea is to provide it in a simple way and in a streamlined way. There are some tools out there, but you need to know what you do, and it's a bit complex to handle all of those if you're not in the insights of what the hell is SAP. And that's what we try to do on that whole attack surface discovery, have like streamlined tools. So a lot of the stuff I work on is based on nuclei. I guess some of you will know that. It's easy, you can use TCP and HTTP services, write it in YAML, and you can extend it super easy. And for sure, there's Nmap and so on. So what we do is a bit find open ports, then enumerate the services, look what we can find, and then check what we can do. And just to show you a bit of the tools and capabilities what we have, for sure we will compromise the system. It's staged, of course. So what we do, and that's one thing also for the attack surface discovery. So we spoke about all those tools up front. Hey, install all those on your machine, please. And maybe you're in an engagement where you only get like a Citrix desktop. That's bad. So you can also do not really have scans. And then you have dependencies, and that's all the problem. So we started creating just a container. You have one environment with all the tools we describe in our wiki. So we also have for each service started up writing a wiki where you have like how you can find it in Shodan, what does the service do, what is the problem with that, which attack techniques or known vulnerabilities and stuff exist. Because also that is sometimes a bit confusing and you need to read 500 articles. We have a container, you have a full-fledged environment to play with. There are all other tools in that container. One hint I noticed, don't run a container on a Windows machine with enabled Defender, except you want to have like a Christmas tree light up because some stuff Defender doesn't like, and it seems like Defender can look into containers. Usually what you do, you start up with an Nmap scan. Let's just simply do that. There is indeed a tool, it's like a data pattern for Nmap created regarding SAP. It's not that 100% accurate anymore, but it still works great. It's just Google Nmap minus SAP. It's out there on GitHub. You can use those and identify certain SAP services. It helps a lot. If not, you will have an output like that. I can bet, I think SSH is the only one which is right. Everything else is wrong. It's just default identified, but that's what you get back. And that's even a strip view. Besides that, if you now want to run it, for example, through that nuclei, that Nmap output doesn't really help because nuclei, for example, requires you to have IP address : port. So you need to reformat that. I'm not that proud, I'm not a good coder, but that script does its job. It just takes the Nmap XML output and creates you just a target list of all the IP addresses and ports. It's out there, grab it, play with it, have fun. There we go. So as a next step, what we will do is like just scan that whole, I think I deleted something in my notes, cool. There we go. Run those nuclei tags. So when you look, no, I don't have it there. So what you can do, you create for each service or what you try to detect in nuclei a template. Now, I don't want to run, I think it's about 40 templates by manual. You can create workflows, you can summarize those. And I started just creating one big workflow. Just run your workflow against your target. Let's see what's coming out. Will take a bit, but we try to identify as accurate as possible. We are not intrusive, so we are not flipping any parameters. We are not really breaking anything. It's more like just looking around, getting visibility, what's enabled. So one thing we didn't mention, but SAP changed their RFC, by the way, to WebSockets. Anyway, you can see we get some information. We see, for example, host names, internal IP addresses, those weird UPD, BTC, SPO, whatever. That's just a description on which server is which process running and provides which capability. But if we go a bit down, you see we can dump the ACL on that system. We have that monitor service enabled. And maybe that looks a bit familiar. That's just with scraping that logon screen. We can just look if there's something from interest. Besides, for example, that SID, which is always 3 digits, usually in numbers and letters, with some exclusions, and the host name, so we can also try to scrape that. It's super interesting what you can find, because sometimes you know then which company that system belongs to. And yeah, some famous Russian companies, by the way, are also running SAP. It's quite interesting. Anyway, getting those information and getting that visibility is just that what is exposed on my systems, either to the internet or maybe if you try to run that through your internal network to gain and see what do I expose there. We had various, I wouldn't say companies, but coming over and say, hey, I didn't even know that we expose our system, and by the way, that we saw that it is exposed, we also recognize we have a brute force attack ongoing. I said, why did you not see that? No one looked into that. And even if I asked the firewall guy why it's exposed, he said, well, I don't know. It's just happened. It's like, okay, please monitor your stuff. And I know there are some projects out there which automate that nuclei. Run it continuously. Look when you have a company, look what you expose on your public systems. It's super important. Continuing with that, we have our system. Let's see what else is working. So when you go into that PySAP, so there is a DIAG login brute force. And I told you there are some SAP default creds. Google, they are publicly, if not, you can also get them in the repo. And what it does, it simulates like a client connection and can enumerate all those different clients. If not, it uses the default and just checks like a, what's it called, a password spray, throws them against because there's defined pairs and say, hey, that's the default creds, and you can see we can log in with those. So they're available like that SAP star and pass. That's, by the way, the hard-coded password. So if you flip the parameter and that user doesn't exist, it's hard-coded in the kernel. So you cannot delete that or whatever. Either you disable it or it's there. And guess why DEDIC has that password? What happened at that date? R3. That's just that date. And by the way, the other default password for the SAP star is just the same date, reverse. It's 06/07/1992. And those are all known. So that's SAP, how it is. And for example, that hard-coded substar, you would think about like an insurance company, they have their security maturity, and they know about that. I did an audit about 4.5 years ago for quite a big Swiss insurance company. Was like, hey, why is that enabled? As a fallback. Just sane, so many people enable that stuff because it could be just a fallback if something goes wrong. We did some network cool fancy stuff. Let me continue a bit. So we have another tool. Just reconnect here. Come on, Windows. Thank you. So when you now have access to the SAP system, it's cool. Congratulations. Now, but how can you extend what you do? The problem is SAP itself has completely different handling, which you maybe are aware from a common other application. And there's another project called SAP Killen, which tries to help you a bit on that. So what you need is that SAP GUI installed. That's the fat client of SAP. It just minimized it here quickly. It just looks like that. Where is it? There we go. Here's my GUI. You can put in a system, the IP address, and more or less that's it. And when you have the system connected, you would double click on that. Maybe something looks familiar. There on the right. It's that common field where you can put in free text. Some companies even put logos in there. it's super cool because sometimes really it helps because you manage hundreds sometimes of systems and you want to know, is it production, is it test, is it development, because you have landscapes. So there's maybe you break into a dev system, which is even better. And then you log in and it's a GUI. Whoever worked with SAP, I think you know what I'm speaking about. So the SAP Killen, you just basically provide the path to that SAP GUI, and then you can specify the connection. And it will automate you a lot of that stuff. So let's take our system from before. I already prepared that. Let's go into that managing client, and it's the, hope I didn't type it wrong. And we are logged in. You do not see anything that's happening in the background. So what is cool with that? So SAP GUI allows you to run scripts. So you can record actions, which you then can automate based on that GUI. So what we do, it looks right now, if we are a legitimate user, grasping through that SAP system, which is not worse, but SAP GUI is a bit complex to handle. That's why we go that way. So in the background, you see it a bit down there. It's blinking in orange. It runs in the background for us on the SAP GUI. What we can do now here, some example protocols, is just execute and check if we can execute operating system commands. Like, who am I? And yeah, what should I say? I hope it works. It did execute anything? I have a demo video there. It works, yes, 2 days ago. Yeah, it's always. Yeah. It didn't help. Or other stuff. Maybe we can see it in background. Let's run it again. Here we go. We have the username, which is our service account where the SAP is running on. We could now break, for example, the operating system. Again, no EDR usually or AV. So you do not need to set up any AV bypass. And yeah, you can fully compromise the corporate network without even being detected on a bad day. There are mechanisms in place, but the biggest problem for SAP is not that there is like an exploit. This is also a case, especially for Java, but 99% of the attacks against SAP is misconfiguration. Because it's too complex and you can easily mess it up, and it sometimes is too annoying to configure it securely. And with that, just again, what we do, I mean, we spoke about that. What we build, tons of services, that's not even the half of what we should implement. If you identify any service, feel free to open an issue. Please help us, because also for us, or right now, especially for me, it's a lot of stuff to do that. I do that just in between when I cannot sleep in the night. And you need to fingerprint that, you need to have the service up and running. So wasting a lot. I think I have 10 or 15 SAP systems in the meantime at home running, just to test different styles. In addition, what we did, we collaborate with Hunter.how, which allows, so the problem with Shodan is they scan only about 1,000-something ports, which doesn't include the one from SAP mostly. And Hunter.how technically scans all, 65,000 whatever. And we built in like the ability that you can search for service like SAP Gateway, and you find all the RFC gateways exposed to the internet. So that helps a lot. They were super helpful, and it's pretty cool. We have a wiki section, and happy for any collaboration. We work on more, extend it as much as we can, and with that, back to you.
Just to put it out there, SAP is really doing some good work in terms of putting the requirements or security for the organizations. But organizations don't actually take that standard and let's say, implement it. So that verification standard based on the attacks will just enable you to actually, it's very dull right now. We're trying to improve that, I know. So we're trying, for instance, what we saw with the attack flow is that those standard users, there is a long, let's say, a standard or long requirement that you can actually implement or check if you have it. So this verification standard has all of these different areas where you can take and implement on your SAP system. Of course, start with development and then go up. Don't implement it directly to production. But we are trying to work here on visualizing this bit better. But you have different controls. Also controls for BTP right now, it's the thing. So there are security controls when it comes to the verification. So you could find different areas when it comes under the SAP security verification standard under the OWASP project. Yeah, you could see more around the HANA technology here. So it really gives you an understanding. Also, we try to map it to different, let's say, not standards, I would say, and then directly towards the NIST cybersecurity framework. So you, as a cybersecurity expert or information security expert, can understand how it is related, because, I mean, a lot of people speak that NIST cybersecurity framework, so we want to try to map that towards SAP security. PySAP, just some features that PySAP gives. It's built on top of SCAPI, if you've heard. So we create packets, whether we are doing some attack emulations to improve use cases around SAP to enhance monitoring. So it does actually dissect and craft network protocols around the different proprietary protocols of SAP. So it's quite a big project around PySAP. Now our focus is shifting it to Python 3 point, whatever, yeah, latest one. And then, of course, our Honey SAP, which is really, we use it a lot when we are doing some pen test, is emulating an application server where individuals can log into that Honey SAP. We're trying different ways to introduce Honey users into it from what John was speaking in the morning. But with SAP, you need to be careful when creating stuff because their license models is amazing. So if you create actually users and do not unlock or do not lock them, you will pay for those users. So lock them, yes. You can create users as service users and they won't charge you for it, but make sure when you are doing some sort of Honey users, Honey tables when it comes to the database, try to understand the licensing around that. I'm not an expert in licensing. There's departments and departments for SAP licensing, so ask them. Do you want to say anything? No. All right. So to give you a small mapping around the attack flow, how those different tools work together under that same umbrella. So we saw from the Attack Surface Discovery how we can, find those ports, enumerate services. Don't do it just from an external perspective, do it from an internal perspective as well. Some of these SAP systems are not published, but still they are internally also published and exposed to different networks. So look into that perspective as well. With PySAP, actually, we did some scanning and testing around default credentials around that area. And then finally, with our SAP Kiln, what we did is compromise the system through the different validation and checking those permissions. So check it out. Of course, support us. Whoever is interested, we have a community. I'll show you now the QR codes. You could join us. And Julian would like to give you some SAP, whoever likes an SAP system to test on. So scan this QR code. As everybody before us said, trust me. So
one thing to add, maybe if you want to share the pane, if it's shared, it's a bit easier to handle. So what SAP, so first of all, SAP is not that bad at all in security.
No.
They provide solutions, they provide ACLs, they provide capabilities and guidelines. They do their work. But the most responsibility is also on the customer side that you need to implement it. You cannot blame someone because you're not able to look left and right when you walk over a street. You cannot blame the police or the state. It's just you. SAP also provides demo systems for developers, for non-commercial use. I need to say that because we are recorded. And so that's a container. I think it's one of the smallest SAP I've ever seen. I think it's 4 CPUs and 16 gigs of memory. They even say that they will keep it updated over the years, and there will be definitely an update maybe in the next half year or year. The cool thing is it's in container Docker, and basically what you see there is, it's what I created is just a bit of Terraform automation around it to deploy it in AWS. Because even if you run it on Docker, you need to have that machine available. And for example, on an M Mac, it doesn't work anymore. So you need to have x68 hardware and stuff like that. That's why that's just Terraform. You can even run it on-prem for free.
Absolutely. If you're doing any research, and then tell us what you find.
Yeah, please.
So yeah, we have a Discord. We're not that big. We're around 30, 40 people there, and our page for the OWASP. So thank you very much. Any questions? On time.
Perfect.
Do we have any questions?
Questions?
Hello. Hi. Here. Here I am. I just wondered, because actually I do not have any experience with SAP, so please be kind to me. But someday in the past, a custom success manager, I think, or a sales manager from SAP came to us because they have this new cool threat detection module in which they would like to offer for us. So do you have any experience with that? Is it
Yep. You mean
worth?
enterprise?
Yeah, exactly. The enterprise threat detection model, it's something like a SIEM where they have pre-built rules and they can detect every move you take within that system.
So the short and the long, other than it is quite expensive, it's good if you understand SAP, but you really want to understand your entire environment as well. So how would you collaborate with your SOC team on doing that? So you can ship, I'm not sure if they introduced that recently with ETD, to ship logs or whatever you find on ETD into a SIM so you could start doing use cases. It's really good when it comes to building or doing forensics, not just forensics, but doing some sort of incident response. So to find how things started or what kind of threats are there. It's quite good, but you really need to understand how to connect it to your entire environment SOC, because attacks are not just happening on the application level, attacks are happening on your entire, let's say, stack. So whether it's a network, whether it's the host, so it's happening everywhere. So it's just how you operate it. Any other words?
Yeah, from my experience, ETD is you need a team which is dedicated to run that. You need SAP guys understanding what they see. The second one is there are two versions. There's the version you can install, which basically means you need an SAP HANA license of the database, which is an in-memory database, so you need also the hardware for that, which ingests your logs. The cool thing with that is that SAP built in their kernel layer a proprietary API, which allows you, before that log even is written, is sent to that ETD. That's a pretty cool feature. The problem is it's only for ETD. When you go to the cloud version, so ETD delivers you pattern, which is like the pre-built rules from Elastic, with, I would say, that amount of compared to what Elastic provides. When you go to the cloud edition, you get even less. They have not fully, it's the same system, just run by SAP for you, but they were not able to transfer all those patterns over. I think you get in the normal 120 patterns, and in the cloud 140. And it's, to be honest, also in my opinion, freaking expensive. Because you have to license for the software usually, but on the other side, you can get it halfway free if you're in license discussions with SAP. So just for everyone else, thinking about license discussion, we're not speaking about some $1,000. Put some more zeros on the end, it's usually about millions.
If you are thinking of doing some sort of monitoring, so think of connectors where you are shipping your logs through some sort of connector to your SIM. Then it makes sense, you don't pay that much. I hope that SAP account manager likes me after that. Don't tell him our names.
Yeah, better not.
That's one of our goals, piss off a lot of people. And we're doing it successfully. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any more questions? Okay.
I know indeed from a tool, but I think it's not in BSAP, which allows to decompress that repo source. I know about that. It's in a different repo. But it's possible.
Jonathan reports a lot of 0 days with, for SAP. I hope they listen to you one day. But awesome research with SAP security.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a way. And so also for everyone wondering what SAR is as a file system, file type, it's the SAP tar. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? Anybody?
It is regarding like the threat detection module that SAP sells. Are they selling like rules or rules like what you call pattern, or patterns and logs? Like is there a possibility if you don't pay like this license to collect the logs and you create the patterns, if there are someone with good understanding of SAP security attacks?
When it comes to this licensing, to be honest, it's quite tricky. The first rule of SAP, you can quote me for that, is sell, get money, and then ask questions later. But I really, I haven't crossed that.
I'm not sure about how they license it. I remember once, but don't quote me on that. It's quite a while ago, easily 7-8 years. It was per user based. So so how many users you have reporting back to, but not sure if they changed it. And as I mentioned, depending on when you're in license discussions with SAP, could be you get it for free, that whole product, because they try to throw it out to justify their whatever 2 million contract. Yeah.
There are cheaper ways to
Yeah.
do the monitoring, let's say.
With more patterns. But we not want to do marketing here. And it's not from both of our companies.
No.
So.
Anybody else? Don't be shy.
If not, one last words, we have stickers on the outside. Grab some.
This is just a community, where is it? Yeah, the Security Silverback is just a community. It's not a company, an organization. So we are a bunch of people that came up with this name.
And we learned when you work a lot in SAP space, you get easily gray hairs, where I have a bit of cheating with my blonde hairs compared to you. But that's why a silverback, so. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.